Welcome everyone. You're in for an eye-opening story today. If you've ever worked under a bad boss or felt unseen at work, this one will hit home. Imagine a CEO so disconnected from his own company that he has no idea how toxic things have become, until he goes undercover as a regular employee. What does he discover? Exhausted workers, a ruthless manager, and a broken system. But when he finally steps in, everything changes. Stay with me because this story isn't just about work. It's about justice, leadership, and standing up for what's right. Let's dive in. Lucas Hartman, the 45-year-old CEO of SummitTech, had built his company from the ground up, transforming a small startup into a tech powerhouse. His business thrived on innovation. But lately, troubling reports about one of his company's biggest call centers had started piling up on his desk. Employees were complaining of toxic management, impossible quotas, and an overwhelming workload. Reports spoke of burnout, mistreatment, and a culture of fear, but when Lucas confronted his senior management, their responses always felt rehearsed, too polished to be the full truth. For years, he had trusted the reports and metrics presented to him, but deep down, Lucas knew numbers didn't tell the whole story. Something was broken within his company, and he needed to see it for himself. That's when he made a bold decision. He would go undercover as a new employee, working on the ground level to experience firsthand what his workers endured daily. With a scruffy beard, casual clothes, and a fake resume, Lucas became Leo, a temp worker in the company's call center. He informed HR about a new hire, ensuring his cover was secured. No one knew he was the CEO. To them, he was just another desperate worker looking for a paycheck. As he walked into the office for his first shift, the constant ringing of phones, the hurried voices of employees, and the intense atmosphere hit him immediately. This was where the real work happened, and he was about to uncover the truth about his own company in the harshest way possible. Lucas, now Leo, stepped through the glass doors of SummitTech's call center, blending in with a group of newly hired temp workers. The air was thick with the sounds of ringing phones, muffled conversations, and the mechanical clicking of keyboards. Rows of gray cubicles stretched across the open office space, each occupied by employees wearing headsets, their eyes locked on screens as they handled customer complaints, one after another. The atmosphere was tense, efficient, but devoid of warmth, as if every second counted more than the people working there. Before he could take in more, a man with sharp features and an impatient glare approached him, clipboard in hand. "You the new guy?" he barked. Damien, the floor supervisor, didn't bother waiting for an answer before shoving a thick training manual into Lucas's hands. "Read this later, right now. I need you on the phone. No mistakes, no slacking." He turned away just as fast, already berating another worker. There were no introductions, no welcomes, just orders and expectations. Lucas sat at his assigned cubicle, fumbling with the outdated headset and the glitchy software that lagged with every input. Within minutes, he received his first call. A frustrated customer demanding an immediate fix for their billing issue. Trying to navigate the slow system while following the confusing company policies, Lucas quickly realized the pressure these employees worked under every single day. A quiet voice next to him broke his concentration. "First day?" He turned to see Emma, a woman in her mid-30s with tired eyes but a kind smile. "It's brutal at first," she whispered, "but you'll get the hang of it. Just keep your head down around Damien." Lucas nodded, watching as Damien stalked the aisles, his presence a constant source of stress for the workers. He had only been there for an hour, but already the unspoken rules of survival were clear. Work fast, don't complain, and never fall behind. If he wanted to uncover the truth, he needed to blend in and experience this world just like everyone else. After only a few hours on the job, Lucas, still undercover as Leo, began to fully grasp the unrelenting pressure of working at the call center. Every second was monitored, evaluated, and criticized. The moment a call ended, another was waiting, with barely enough time to take a breath. The software was painfully slow, causing delays that led to frustrated customers lashing out at employees. But instead of addressing these issues, management blamed the workers for inefficiency. It didn't take long for Lucas to realize why turnover was so high. Every employee was treated as disposable. Damien, the floor supervisor, patrolled the aisles like a drill sergeant, listening in on calls and barking orders. He had a habit of publicly calling out workers for mistakes, making an example of them. "What the hell was that, Ryan?" he snapped at a nearby IT support worker who had come to fix a workstation. "We don't have all day for your little tech problems." Ryan, clearly exhausted, just nodded and hurried off without a word. Lucas made a mental note. This wasn't just an issue with call center agents, but with every department in the building. During his lunch break, Lucas sat with Emma and a few others in the cramped, dimly lit break room. Everyone looked drained. The meal break was only 30 minutes, just enough time to wolf down food before being forced back onto the floor. He noticed Greg, an older employee in his late 50s, rubbing his temples as he stared at his untouched sandwich. "Rough day?" Lucas asked. Greg sighed. "Every day's rough, kid. I've been here 10 years, but with the new quotas, it's getting impossible to keep up. I'm too slow, they say, but I can't afford to quit." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I have heart issues. No way I get another job at my age." Emma chimed in, stirring her coffee. "Management doesn't care. As long as the numbers look good, we're replaceable." She shot a glance toward Damien, who was standing near the door, checking his watch like he was timing their break. The sense of fear in the room was suffocating. Lucas felt a surge of guilt. How had things gotten this bad under his leadership? From his office, all he had ever seen were spreadsheets, performance charts, and polished reports. But here, on the ground, he saw the truth. Real people, working themselves sick under a system that viewed them as nothing more than statistics. Just as he was processing everything, the break room door slammed open. Damien's cold voice cut through the silence. "Lunch is over, back to work." Lucas clenched his fists. This wasn't just a bad workplace. This was a machine that chewed people up and spit them out. And he was starting to wonder just how many more Gregs and Emmas had been sacrificed to keep that machine running. Lucas had seen enough. The toxic atmosphere, the relentless pressure, and Damien's heartless leadership had painted a clear picture of why employees were burning out, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened next. The afternoon rush was in full swing, with calls flooding in faster than agents could handle. The tension in the air was suffocating, and employees were moving like machines, racing against the never-ending queue. Lucas had just finished a particularly difficult call when he heard a faint, labored breath from a few cubicles away. Greg, the senior agent who had confided in him earlier, was clutching his chest, his face pale and drenched in sweat. I need a minute," Greg gasped, struggling to catch his breath. His hands trembled as he reached for a water bottle, but it slipped from his grasp. Lucas rushed to his side, kneeling beside him. "Greg, what's wrong?" he asked urgently. Greg tried to speak, but could barely get the words out. "Chest, tight, can't breathe." Panic surged through Lucas. This wasn't just exhaustion. This was a medical emergency. He shot up and sprinted to Damien, who was casually scrolling through his phone near the supervisor's station. "Greg is in trouble. He needs help now." Damien didn't even look up. If it's Greg, he's probably faking it again. He's always looking for excuses to slack off. Lucas felt his blood boil. "He's not faking it. He needs medical attention." Damien rolled his eyes and exhaled loudly. "Fine. I'll call someone. But you? Get back to your desk." Lucas hesitated for only a second before ignoring the order completely. Screw the disguise. He stayed by Greg's side, holding his shoulder, whispering, "Hang in there, help is coming." The on-site medic arrived minutes later, confirming Greg was showing signs of a potential heart attack. He was immediately escorted out for further medical evaluation. As Greg was taken away, Lucas looked around at the other workers. No one had dared to intervene, not because they didn't care, but because they were terrified of the consequences. And that's when Lucas knew this couldn't go on. It was no longer just about bad leadership or poor working conditions. It was about saving lives, and he was about to make sure no one would ever suffer under Damien's rule again. Lucas had reached his limit. No more watching in silence, no more pretending. Seeing Greg nearly collapse while Damien brushed it off as laziness was the final straw. It was time to act. At the end of his shift, Lucas walked straight to Damien's office, knocking sharply before pushing the door open without waiting for a response. Damien looked up from his desk, clearly irritated. "What now?" he asked, his tone dismissive. Lucas shut the door behind him and dropped his disguise in an instant. His posture straightened, his voice firm. "We need to talk, Damien. Now. Damien furrowed his brow. What's your problem, Leo? Lucas removed his fake employee badge and set it on the desk. My name isn't Leo, he said evenly. It's Lucas Hartman. I'm the CEO of this company. For a moment the color drained from Damien's face. His eyes flicked between Lucas and the badge, processing the revelation. He opened his mouth, then closed it, struggling to form a response. Lucas leaned forward, his voice cold and sharp. I've spent the past few days working under you, watching how you treat people, and let me be absolutely clear. You've failed as a leader. Damien sputtered. Sir, if I had known. No, Lucas cut him off. That's exactly the problem. You shouldn't treat people differently just because you know who's watching. You've created a toxic, fear-driven environment where employees are too scared to speak up, too afraid to take a break, and too exhausted to function. And today a man nearly collapsed because of the pressure you've created, and you dismissed it as nothing. Damien straightened up, trying to salvage his authority. Look, sir, I was just following company standards. Lucas slammed his hands on the desk. Those are not company standards, not in my company. Damien went silent. Lucas exhaled, his voice now calm but firm. Effective immediately. You're fired, security will escort you out, and if I find out you've treated employees like this anywhere else, I will personally make sure you never hold another leadership position again. Damien's face turned red, his mouth twitching between defiance and panic. He started to protest, but Lucas was done listening. He opened the door, motioning for security, who were already waiting. Without another word, they led Damien out of the building. Lucas turned back to the office, his heart still pounding, but he wasn't finished yet. Now it was time to fix what Damien had broken. The next morning, Lucas arrived at the call center no longer as Leo the temp, but as the CEO. The moment he stepped onto the floor, the usual hum of ringing phones and hurried conversations faltered as employees noticed him. Whispers spread. Everyone had heard about Damien's sudden firing, but no one knew what would come next. Lucas called for a company-wide meeting, and hesitant workers gathered, unsure of what to expect. Taking a deep breath, he addressed them directly. I've spent the last few days working among you. I've seen how hard you work, how much you sacrifice, and how little you're valued. That ends today. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the crowd. Lucas began listing immediate changes. Break times are extended, and no one will be penalized for taking them. Performance expectations will be adjusted to focus on quality service, not just speed. Outdated software will be replaced, making your jobs easier and reducing customer frustration. More staff will be hired to ease workloads and prevent burnout. The workers exchanged stunned glances. Was this really happening? Lucas wasn't done. What happened to Greg yesterday should never have happened. His medical leave is now fully paid, and moving forward, anyone with a legitimate health concern will be supported, not ignored. Greg, still recovering, looked completely shocked, and the room grew quieter, absorbing the weight of the promise. Lucas turned toward Emma, the agent who had quietly held things together. Damien is gone, and it's time for someone who actually cares about the team to take charge. Emma is your new floor manager. Emma's eyes widened, but before she could respond, a wave of applause erupted. Employees who had spent years feeling unseen finally felt heard. Lucas exhaled. This wasn't just about fixing a broken system, it was about rebuilding trust. And for the first time, the workplace felt like a team again. With the biggest changes set in motion, Lucas knew there was still one more thing left to do: recognize those who had kept the company running despite the toxic environment. Too often, the hard-working employees who held everything together were overlooked, and he was about to change that. At the end of the meeting, Lucas turned to Emma, Greg, and Ryan, the people who had quietly endured the worst of the system and still did their jobs with integrity. I want to personally thank those of you who went above and beyond, he said. People like Emma, who didn't just do her job but helped train and support new hires when management wouldn't. As of today, she's officially your new floor manager with a well-earned raise. The crowd burst into applause, and Emma, stunned, covered her mouth before finally shaking Lucas's hand. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You've already said it, Lucas replied. Every single day. Then he turned to Greg, the longtime employee who had nearly collapsed from stress. Greg, you've dedicated years to this company, and instead of support, you were ignored when you needed help the most. That changes now. Your medical leave is fully paid, and when you return, we'll discuss a senior training position with better hours and benefits. Greg's face flushed with emotion. I don't know what to say, he stammered. Lucas smiled. Just focus on getting better. Finally, he turned to Ryan, the overworked IT specialist, who had kept the company's failing systems running despite being dismissed by management. Ryan, I've seen how much you do behind the scenes. Starting today, you'll lead a new IT improvement team with a raise and additional resources to fix the problems you've been fighting against. Ryan's jaw dropped and the crowd cheered again, louder this time. For years, these employees had been told they were replaceable. Today, Lucas had proven otherwise. And for the first time, hope filled the air, a feeling that had been missing for far too long. The story of Lucas going undercover in his own company highlights a powerful lesson about true leadership. Success isn't just about profits and efficiency, but about valuing the people who make the company function. Numbers and reports can only tell part of the story. To truly understand a workplace, leaders must listen to their employees and experience their struggles firsthand. Lucas had unknowingly allowed a toxic culture to grow under his leadership because he trusted polished reports instead of looking at the reality on the ground. His experience in the call center taught him that bad management can destroy morale, productivity, and even people's well-being. Employees aren't just replaceable numbers. They are individuals with families, responsibilities, and personal struggles, and they deserve respect and fair treatment. By stepping in, taking action, and rewarding those who truly deserved it, Lucas didn't just fix a broken system, he rebuilt trust. The biggest takeaway from his journey is that real change starts from the top. A leader who listens, takes responsibility, and prioritizes people over numbers will create a stronger, more successful company where employees thrive, not just survive.